Given you is not what I say. So you folks better wake up. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. So,
I provided written form back here.
all right, thank you very much. So our next speaker is Roy Dahlberg, followed by Nezzy Wade. And when I call your name, if you wouldn't mind standing at the side of the room so we can help us move on a little more quickly. Welcome, Roy.
Chairperson Bass and other supervisors. AHHA,
Can you get closer to the mic?
I'm sorry.
Please start.
Is that better?
Yes.
AHHA and a number of other people in the community are presenting you with petitions of over 1,000 signatures asking you to consider a housing crisis declaration. I would like to read that petition into the record briefly if I could. Whereas the legal remedy states, upon a finding by the governing body that a significant number of persons within the jurisdiction, that's the county, are without the ability to obtain shelter, and that situation has resulted in a threat to the health and safety of those persons, Chapter 633, Senate Bill number 2 of California law, sets forth requirements for the local planning and housing element provisions that add emergency shelters to these provisions as specified. Our local government has identified zones throughout the county where emergency shelters are allowed as a permitted use without a conditional use or other discretionary permit, and it authorizes the local government to satisfy all or part of this requirement by adopting and implementing a multi-jurisdictional agreement. The 2015 point-in-time count indicated there were over 1,300 homeless individuals living in Humboldt County. The 2017 point-in-time count is not reliable and has not been released. There are not enough available shelter beds or low-income housing stock in the county. Whereas the Department of Justice in California has recently ruled that people cannot be deprived of, the U.S. Department of Justice cannot be deprived of their right to sleep, and Eureka and Humboldt County are now headed toward violation of human rights and the constitutional rights by their current proposed eviction actions without a legal place for people to move. Whereas property destruction by the city of Eureka and the county of Humboldt also opens our governing bodies to possible lawsuits for violation of property rights. Therefore, we are calling on this Board of Supervisors to place this shelter crisis on the board agenda and 1, after discussion, declare a Humboldt County shelter crisis. 2, appoint a county-wide task force that includes representatives from all homeless stakeholder groups to develop services and land access to successfully relocate all homeless people temporarily into multiple legal sanctuary camps, converting into tiny house villages and other available areas until there is adequate housing for low-income people available for these persons. So we ask you to consider that petition and act upon it. Thank you.
Thank you, Roy. Welcome, Nezzy, and following Nezzy will be Jim Glover and Ellen Taylor.
Here are the petitions.
All right, thank you very much. All right, thank you very much. And welcome.
I'm Nezzy Wade, and the president of the board for Affordable Homeless Housing Alternatives. And I have a personal statement that I want to give to you, which is asking you to put this on your agenda as a matter of love and good faith for the homeless and for the rest of the residents in Humboldt. I'd like to talk a little bit about the shelter crisis and where we've come from. We started talking about doing a shelter crisis at the end of 2013. It was pretty foreign back then and not very familiar. But recently, legislation has occurred in California where the state has been involved in actually facilitating the development of shelter crisis declarations for many cities. And I don't know if any of you saw this article that came out yesterday. It was AP this morning. It says, official counts taken earlier this year in California, Oregon, Washington show 168,000 homeless people in 3 states, according to an AP tally of every jurisdiction in those states that reports homeless numbers to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And we know that there's a lot of people who are not identified in those numbers. But since 2015, at least 10 cities or municipalities, municipal regions, that is counties, in California, Oregon, and Washington, and Honolulu have declared states of emergency due to the rise of homelessness. And so with legislation that has come out this year to assist San Jose and to facilitate the declaration of shelter crisis and to be able to create what the legislation calls bridging communities or emergency shelter cabins, these are the things that we've been talking to you about all along. So those are things that have been now widely understood. It makes us, having been aware of this for a long time, not deviant any longer. We, like anything else, something that's deviant, if done enough, becomes the norm. We brought Andrew Heben here, who was the originator of the tiny house village concept. He's been here a few times. We visited other places. We've been in contact with this movement across the country where this is happening because it is an affordable, quick alternative to getting people into safe spaces and getting on with their lives. It contributes to community. It's good for everyone. And a shelter crisis, I know there seems to be a lot of resistance. It's kind of a scary thing because maybe it'll be chaotic. It isn't. It works. And so I guess what I would say in the end is we need to move beyond services. There are a lot of people out there for whom there are no services. We have thousands of students. We have people that are out in the bush, and we need to focus on those for whom the services don't apply. And there are very many of them. So we need to open our hearts and new spaces for them, and the Shelter Crisis Declaration is a really important way and an appropriate way to do that. And we can't leave them out there.
All right, thank you very much, Nezzy. And as Jim is making his way up, I am going to take a moment to mention, as some of you might have noticed on their agenda, we had Toddy Thomas listed for a 9:05 time set. And what I wanted to do is, however, have them see some of public comment before they actually did theirs. So once we get towards, 9:30, I'm looking at the teacher. If we're still in public comment, we will take a break and let them do their item because they have to be back to school. They don't want to go back to school probably, but So please, this is a wonderful lesson in civics and government. So thanks for being patient and helping us with this. Welcome, Jim.
Glover. I'm the chair of the Humboldt County Human Rights Commission. I have been a member of the Human Rights Commission for 4 years. During that entire time, the issue of homelessness has been a front and center issue, and so it is to this day. Many groups and individuals have offered ideas to address chronic homelessness, associated violence, property issues, mental health and addiction problems, and more. Yet, here we are again. The Human Rights Commission has sought extensive community input on the many aspects of homelessness, both within Eureka, Southern Humboldt, and elsewhere. We have not always read from the same script as some advocates, but we have always paid attention. Housing first is a fine concept, but it alone is not enough. Whether we are talking about tiny house villages, sustainable villages, nomadic campgrounds, or any other concept, the discussion needs to take place. The one body that can and should address the issue head-on is the Board of Supervisors. You not only have the legal authority to act, you have the moral authority to act. The Human Rights Commission endorses this effort for you to get a shelter crisis declaration and possible solutions-based actions on the earliest possible agenda. A single supervisor is needed to be the leader on this board to get a serious dialogue going. A declaration by this board can ultimately change the course of this discussion for years to come. A declaration could save lives. Inaction will guarantee continued suffering. Inaction also absolutely guarantees we will be having this discussion again and again until you do make such a declaration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. And our next speaker is Ellen Taylor. Following Ellen will be Edie Jessup and Joanne Huffman. Welcome, Ellen.
Good morning. My name is Ellen Taylor, and I'm presenting myself today as an employee of Open Door Community Health Services. And I wanted to present the perspective of healthcare providers on this issue And to that end, on Friday and also on Monday, myself and Dr. Ellen Weiss up in the Arcata Clinic collected signatures from practitioners. My experience on Friday was that unanimously, everyone from reception people who have contact with our patients, to medical assistants, to nurses, to social workers, to providers, all have been seriously distressed by our inability to provide health care for homeless people. It's like trying to build a building on sand. You don't have the fundamentals of health when people are constantly pursued around the street, deprived of their belongings, exposed to the elements 24/7. And whether you're treating an acute condition, a wound or a cellulitis or something like that, or whether you're treating a chronic condition, there's none of the basic requirements that we all learn as children. You need to have adequate rest, you need to have adequate nutrition, and you need to be free from constant bombardments of traumatic experiences which only exacerbate anxiety and depression. And people, even people who are precipitated into homelessness by bad fortune, by ill fortune, and it's easy to have bad fortune these days. It's a challenge just to pay rent if you're a rent payer, who are precipitated into homelessness, become members of people with serious psychiatric and psychological conditions just because of the trauma of living outdoors all the time. So our hands are tied in a lot of respects, and a significant, we have wealthy clients as well, but we have lots of people who have very limited resources and are limited to a small check once a month, which doesn't cover anything. It's impossible to, if they want a kind of a surgery, to be able to guarantee that they'll have a quiet period during which they can recover. If they have congestive heart failure or some kind of heart issue or cancer, any of those conditions. Of course, we have millions of diabetics, not millions, but we have lots and lots of diabetics who aren't able to take care of their diabetes. Here are the signatures. As I said, they were practically unanimous. And I think if we went down to the clinics in Southern Humboldt, we'd find the same. We didn't get there. We didn't get to Fortuna or Ferndale. This is Arcata and Eureka. And I didn't even get upstairs to the administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. And welcome, Ms. Jessup. And following you will be Joanne.
I think that there's some people, the list for public comment is there, and there are a number of other people.
We do that, after the folks that have signed up, then everybody else gets to come up.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for asking.
My name's Edie Jessup, and I live in Manila. And I just want to comment that the issue of homelessness is county-wide. It is not just Eureka-centric. And that your declaring a shelter crisis will assist smaller communities throughout the county to address homelessness in a way that makes some sense. For 3 years, we've been asking for this and understand that it does only take one person to put it on the agenda, but that most of the supervisors require 2 people in order for it to be put on the agenda. We hope that you will put this on the agenda so it can be discussed. You know, Housing First was what was selected as a means of addressing homelessness. There just is no housing. I worked for over a week trying to get an elderly woman living on the streets into housing, and there just is no housing. That is the essential problem. So what do people want? I think that everybody, property owners, renters, folks who have businesses, all want not to see people sleeping in bushes, creating mounds of trash, having restrooms to use so that they are not defecating on their doorsteps. Everybody wants that, and certainly the homeless want to not be doing those things. I suggest that you look at the homeless issue as a matter of good, and addressing it appropriately as a matter of good economy, of good environmental practices, both for our land and waters and for people, and with an equity lens. Addressing this so that people are not in the bushes and have a place to be and can address their health issues is really the smart thing to do and the economic thing to do. That way, people who have problems with the homeless don't have to be the ones addressing the issues that just by living are created. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Edie. And as Joanne is making her way up, our next speakers following her will be Valerie Gzinski and Jeff Knapp. Welcome, Joanne.
Hi.
And please get closer to the mic so we can hear you.
Is this good? I got my PhD at UC Davis, and I've looked at
Maybe a little closer to the mic.
and I've looked at a lot of real estate economics, and I want you to think about land values around here, because what's happening now is driving them down. If you can get some aid from the state and from various other entities to build shelters and small houses and even apartment buildings, land values will be supported and your moral status will be supported because you'll be helping the homeless a lot. It's been proven in Davis, which I urge you to look at, that scattering people around town is the best way to do that. And I would like you to look at Davis, which has been doing this for about 40 years now. They have a good model, and they refined it a lot. So I offer to help you if you'd like. I can do the research. And I urge you to listen to all these people who are talking about the homeless crisis and think about land values.
Thank you, Joanne. And welcome, Valerie. And next will be Jeff.
Thank you. My name is Valerie Gzinski. I'm a resident of Arcata. Not an expert in any kind of homeless issues, but I certainly can see with my eyes, as we all can, that there really is an issue, a crisis, a problem. People are suffering, and the residents of this county want to see something done to help and to address it. I heard from earlier speakers, you have the legal authority and the moral authority and also the responsibility to get this on the agenda for discussion so we can come up with some solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. And as Jeff is making his way up, following him will be Dave Meserve and Carrie Payton Dahlberg. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you. My name is Jeff Knapp. I live in Arcata. And it seems to me that if this Board of Supervisors was faced with an earthquake, which made 1,000 people homeless, they would respond by declaring a crisis and taking whatever it took to see that those people were housed. If a tsunami came to Humboldt County and 1,000 people were made homeless, I believe this Board of Supervisors would see that those people acquired shelter and eventually a home. If 1,000 people right now or more are homeless, I just don't see the difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Welcome, Dave.
Hello, board. Good to see you. I think while I'm here with other folks asking for you to put on the agenda very soon a shelter crisis declaration. I think as people have pretty much said the things that need to be said, people do have a right to sleep. That's been legally ascertained recently and reasserted by the courts. And people need shelter to have a place to sleep. Shelter is the first, and along with food, the most critical thing towards providing basic needs for people. This morning was the first morning where I really woke up in Arcata and saw frost on the roof. It didn't get the lemon tree yet, but it's definitely, it's cooling off. And so it becomes more and more of a crisis day by day as we move into winter, both wet and cold. So I think what we're asking is that you really just declare what is obvious and apparent. If you walk around Humboldt County, any part of it, you'll see that there is a shelter crisis. You will see people who are without housing, are without shelter, are without the ability to be warm and secure at night. And that's one of the very first things that is a human right, that it should be the job of government to help supply. So we have a shelter crisis. Please declare that so. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Dave. And as Carrie's coming forward, we have one other speaker that signed up, and that's Mr. Madrone. That's when we'll take a break, and we'll go to the Toddy Thomas item, and then we'll open public comment back up, right? Okay, welcome, Carrie.
Thank you. Thank you for hearing us this morning. I recently had the opportunity to be at College of the Redwoods for an opening of their multicultural center on a day-long diversity symposium. I wish you had all been there to hear the heartbreaking stories of CR students who were desperately trying to hold it together, living in tents, living in their cars, trying to stay clean while they got a college education to move their lives forward. It was incredibly touching, and they wanted a place to wash their clothes where they wouldn't have to leave campus too far, or maybe someplace where they could heat the food that came from the college pantry. I'm frankly stunned that it's taken this long to get a shelter crisis, but I want to reframe it slightly for you. What if somebody said, okay, until we can do better, here's a campground in walking distance of CR. Kids, you can put up tents here, and somebody who cares about you might pay for porta potties, and you can go shower in the gym. The kind of creative solutions that this community can do will be allowed under a shelter crisis. A shelter crisis simply says we can set some zoning things aside to open the door to creativity. All of you who might hear from your constituents, get government off the back. Let private solutions rise up. Let a zillion flowers bloom. A shelter crisis will do that. A shelter crisis is less government, so that this really serious problem can be addressed in more creative ways. It doesn't have to commit you to much more than that. And I would really just encourage you, there are people ready to not put this all on the back of government. There's people ready to bring their hearts and their hands and their pocketbooks to help this. They just need you to make sure they're not going to get run off the land when they try something creative. And I am imploring you, please don't you see how full this room is. You don't realize how widespread the demand is getting for this. I implore you not to make the mistakes you've made in the past of saying, oh, nobody really cares about this, and then suddenly, wham, there's a petition and you've got something on the ballot. So don't wait for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. And welcome.
Good morning. Steve Madrone, and thank you very much for hearing us this morning. I wanted to support the AHHA petition and highly recommend that you adopt this emergency shelter crisis ordinance, or whatever it's called. I also wanted to thank Supervisor Bone for working with PG&E to get the trailers. That was a step forward. Thank you for that. It was unfortunate that the county couldn't find a place to put them because you haven't adopted the shelter crisis, or other reasons. I'm not sure exactly what. I know for many supervisors it's a little tricky to try and put the trailers in your constituents' community because people are like, no, we don't want that here. It's going to attract problems or something. So there's always this reluctance to reach out and start helping people. I appreciate that the city of Eureka stepped up. And it seems a little bit bizarre that these trailers are going in right next door where Devil's Playground got torn apart just over a year ago. So let us count the ways that our current status quo, our current approach is not working. When Devil's Playground was dismantled, did the problem go away? No. In fact, what it did was spread it out all over the county, increasing the costs to our community. The anxiety levels have gone through the roof for a lot of reasons right now, nationally, locally, the homelessness issues, crime's growing. And so if we think about the ways that this is not working, we're criminalizing homelessness. We're criminalizing mental health issues. When it started raining a couple of weeks ago, and I hear this happens often, there are people standing outside the jail throwing rocks at the jail so they can get arrested, so they can have a bed in 3 Square, somehow get out of the elements. I mean, that's just amazing to me that those kinds of things are going on. So by our failure to deal with the homeless crisis, our crimes going up, not just because of homeless, but because of all the problems in our society right now. What does that do? We arrest everybody. We arrest people that have mental issues. We lost the large mental health grant to do a facility in the jail. So we're not providing for these people. So then we overcrowd the jails. And then the jails, the worst gang activity in all of Humboldt County happens in the jails because we're understaffed, we're overcrowded, and so then the jails use the gangs to control the population in jail. This is a well-known fact. How is that solving anything for anybody? So I highly implore you to take this action today, to start thinking about solutions so that we can actually start solving our problems and having empathy and taking care of our community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sanam. And now we'll take the break, and we are going to go to the Toddy Thomas item, and I'm going to turn this over to Supervisor Fennell to do the honors.
Thank you very much, Chair Bass. Welcome to the students from Toddy Thomas, some of whom I've met just recently when we had the Humboldt Live Career Day at Toddy Thomas. Toddy Thomas in Fortuna has done this before, and I want to thank Jim Ritter, who has been so much an integral part of this, and invite you to give us a few words, Jim.
And thank you so much for having us. It's been a pleasure to teach this class. So tomorrow's our last day, and we're pleased to finish our class this fall with our visit here to the Board of Supervisors meeting. What a great introduction to civics and community activism and people in our community feeling strongly about a cause and advocating that with you, our county leaders. That's what this is all about, is our students witnessing that, and of course heading towards being voting members and active adults in our community doing this and participating like we're seeing here this morning. So as we like to do, I'm going to step back and let our students present about our school, present a little bit about our class, and then after that we would like to share a gift with the supervisors and your support staff that we made earlier this year on a visit to Lotus Mountain Screen Printing. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. And so I think we have Lupe and Lily want to talk with us. So welcome, Lupe.
Good morning, Chairperson Bass and the members of the board. I am Guadalupe.
Hold on, I'm not sure if the microphone is on or close enough to you. Okay, green light.
Good morning, Chairperson Bass and the members of the board. I'm Guadalupe Pineda. And I am Lily Sweeney. Thank you for welcoming us to your meeting today. We are 8th grade students in the Humboldt Live class at Toddy Thomas Middle School from Fortuna. In Toddy Live, we're studying leadership, learning about country government, county government, and exploring future careers, ideas, and opportunities. The Decade of Difference, North Coast CalSoap, the McLean Foundation, the Hops in Humboldt provide the funding to offer this year's class at the Toddy Thomas the Fortuna Chamber commenced. Dennis Marshall from McLean Foundation, the Country Rotary Club members, also supporting our class by helping us to contact with the community's guests to join us for the classroom sessions. In Toddy Live this year, we have explored careers in video gaming, design, and graphics, and running a business in screen printing. We have hosted panels about jobs, readiness in high school, and leadership. Supervisor Fennell was our great guest last week at part of our panel about leadership. We also enjoyed a field trip to Lotus Mountain Screen Printing hosted by Carrie and Greg Knotzman.
Our school was built in 1949 and was later named in tribute to Toddy Thomas, the school's first superintendent and principal who passed away unexpectedly in 1958. Toddy Thomas was a native of Ronerville. Our school is part of the Fortuna Elementary School District. Toddy Thomas currently was an enrollment of 240 students in 5th and 8th through 8th grade. Our mascot is the Hornet. Our Toddy Thomas Live class is part of our teacher Rachel Galliani's Be the Change class of Wednesday afternoons. Successes that we are particularly proud of at Toddy Thomas are being named a California Department of Education Title I activating school in 2015, a CDE Gold Ribbon School in 2015, and a Civic Education Award of Merton School in 2016. We would like to thank Supervisor Eslin Fennell and Clerk Kathy Hayes for coordinating our field trip today. Thanks to all of you for service to our community. Finally, we would like to present your board with a gift from our class, sharing the t-shirts that we made at Lotus Mountain Screen Printing with your board members and your staff.
Thank you, Lily. Well,
Okay, we can clap this time. Okay.
oh yeah, we're not supposed to be doing that. So I just want to jump in here with your indulgence, Chair Bass. How could you help me? I just want to say that I did enjoy that leadership meeting that I had with you, and I'm very proud of you for getting up the courage to come up here. I know that you're both very eloquent, and it's a challenge when you come in to a room filled with people and microphones and everything like that. So good work to get through that and give us your presentation. I don't know if we want to have your presentation now or if we want to tell you a little bit about us. Would you want to do that first? Yeah, let's do that.
I was going to invite some of the other students to come up and present you with the gift. We can do that after, whatever.
Let's
I know
have
you
our gifts, and then we'll tell you.
Wait,
Yes,
we'll
tell you who you gave the gifts to.
Chair prerogative. I have another idea. How about we do our talk about what we do, and then the kids can come up, but then we can take a group picture. Well, that's a good time for us to take a break because you guys may be on the, out to get.
We need to leave at 10.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, is that all right with you? Perfect. Is that all right with you, Supervisor Fennell?
Well done, Chair Bass. So what we do is we kind of give you an idea of what our roles are, and also what the roles of administrative staff. And so I'm going to invite Supervisor Bone because we're going to go by district. He's in the 1st district, and you'll recognize that because it's right next to Fortuna. Supervisor
And a little
Bone.
bit, a tiny bit of Fortuna.
Oh, he keeps on saying that.
She
but
hates to
she's
mention
careful
it.
enough.
And then,
He's just
as you
nibbling at it.
as you guys will notice, the efficiency of government is it's 20 to 11 by our clock because we haven't changed it, but you guys aren't late, so. Anyway, yeah, I've got the 1st district, which is a little bit of South Eureka, and then I go all the way to Fortuna and just a little edge of Fortuna, and then a little bit between Fortuna and Riadale, and then I jump into Scotia all the way to the South Fork of the Eel, and then all the way out to the coast. I've got the 2nd longest coastline for a county in the state, I think it is, and not much activity on it except beautiful coastal waters. You'll see that Estelle and I are in Fortuna a lot because we overlap. Some of you kids and your parents probably live in my district and you come into town for school. So we spend a lot of time down in Fortuna because that's probably our biggest incorporated city, which means you have your own little body that runs that. And we try to get along as well as possible with them and be as cohesive as we can. Doesn't always happen, but we try our best. I do want to compliment both you girls because this isn't easy to talk to a big crowd like this, and especially, you know, with your peers and everything else. And you guys did a pretty good job because I could tell because your other classmates weren't giggling at you while you were doing it. So you did a pretty good job. So thanks a lot for being here. It means a lot to us, okay? Thanks.
Thank you, Supervisor Bone. So I'm the 2nd district, which is a district that your school is in. It comprises Fortuna, Rio Dell, also then on down Garberville, Redway, Benbow, out to Hydesville, out to Dinsmore, all those areas. It's a big district and very rural, but also with those towns in the middle. It also goes out to Shelter Cove. And so that's the challenge when you have these kind of bigger districts, is serving everybody. So you know, everybody gets to feel like they're part of every solution that we come into. And if you heard some of the presentations earlier talking about what people want, they discussed the fact that, yes, Southern Humboldt might feel like this too, although we didn't get to go down there because it's far away. But I think that it's important for everybody throughout the county to be heard, and that's why you have 5 districts. And we'll go next to the 3rd district, Supervisor Wilson.
So I am in the 3rd district, and the 3rd district is mostly Arcata,
We are bringing up a map just so the
Blue Lake,
better idea of the size of districts. Okay, there you go.
Arcata, Blue Lake, Manila, Indianola area, Bayside, Neeland, and you can see it kind of reaches down almost to Fortuna. Pretty close. It's getting close there. But it doesn't quite touch it. In any case, so yes, we are the county representatives and not within the cities. So things that you see out in the county with regards to roads and with regards to the environment and how we plan, how we develop into the county, whether we have timberlands or ag lands or where the residents are, those sorts of things are important issues that we deal with. And we certainly, part of our job is to help citizens advocate for themselves, and that's part of what you're seeing today. You're seeing a group of citizens come in and advocate for an issue, and they're asking for our help in the issue that they want to see come and move forward. And so that's a lot of what we do. A lot of what we do is constituent services, I call it, which is basically answering the questions and helping citizens on an individual level advocate for things that are in their community that they want to see happen. And then a lot of what we do is also deal with state issues in terms of advocating for the county as well. And so it's a fun job should you ever want to move in that direction. And certainly we do, as best we can, make government be as efficient as possible, so we're spending the tax dollars that we get from you, and when you spend money, your own money, and from your parents and from our community, our job is to try and translate those dollars into services that are for you. And we do this in the most effective way and efficient way possible, and we're always trying to make it better because we're not perfect.
Thank you, Supervisor Wilson. And then we have the 4th district, which is Supervisor and Chair Bass. She's the chair of the board this year.
Yeah, I temporarily abdicated chair to you for this one item. So, yeah, I am the 4th district, and it's really hard to see on that map. It's a really tiny one. It includes most of the city of Eureka, areas of Myrtletown, and then also across the bridge on the peninsula in the communities of Fairhaven, Finntown, and Samoa. I'm really fortunate because my district is very compact. We all have the same number of people in our districts. There's just different areas to cover. And mine is so nice and small that it's really easy for me to just drop in on a neighborhood and go door to door and say, hey, what's going on? So sometimes people call us when there's an issue. Most people don't call us when things are going well. That's one thing I've noticed. But when you go out and you actually show up at somebody's doorstep, they're really kind of surprised. And I think that's what our community does, and I think this whole board is very involved in with our constituencies. Obviously, most of my district is the city of Eureka, and my job is to work as closely with them as I can. And that's sometimes challenging, you know, different government to government, but it's also very rewarding. And it's, you know, how do I say it? It's the best way to work. It doesn't help when you're like arguing and fighting with each other. So we really try to get along with everybody. As chair of the board, my job is to facilitate meetings, and I think, you know, you've seen some of that today. I'm able to move things around on the agenda. I can try to make things work more smoothly. I can also, you know, basically, if people are being disruptive, I can stop the meeting for a little bit. So it's an opportunity to just make sure things run smoothly and all matters get taken care of. I also wanted to mention that several of the members on this board are on state committees, which is really very important work. Supervisor Sundberg, who's missing, is on the Coastal Commission, the California Coastal Commission. Once a month he has to go to those meetings, but he'll be missing here, but it's very important that he goes to represent the North Coast perspective. Supervisor Bone will be the chair, or president, what do they call it in RCRC? He'll be the head of the Rural County Representatives of California, and that's a group of all the rural counties, and then I am going to be vice chair of the California State Association of Counties, which includes all 58 counties. And Supervisor Fennell is very involved in, you know, anything cannabis she does. You know, we're all on these committees, and Supervisor Wilson is also on, I believe, Local Government Commission, yeah. So just wanted to point out, beyond our usual work here, we also try to advocate on behalf of the county at the state level. So then I'll go back to Supervisor Fennell. And do you want to introduce staff? I mean, we usually let them.
Absolutely. I do want to make a note, because you mentioned something, Chair Bass, Supervisor Bass, teamwork. That's one of the things we discussed when we had our meeting, that teamwork is a very important part of leadership. Leadership, no one person can do it all on their own. It's all about teamwork. And so that's why when you have these kind of boards, you have 5 supervisors, you have 7 planning commissioners, et cetera, et cetera. But without all of our elected representatives, we couldn't do it without staff, which is why I'm going to let you hear a little bit from some of our staff, not everybody, but our county administrative officer is Amy Nielsen.
Hello. So I am appointed by the Board of Supervisors, and part of what the county administrative officer does and the county administrative office staff is we implement the policies that the Board of Supervisors adopts. In particular, we work on an over $300 million budget. That's the largest policy document that comes before the board. We also work on the state and federal legislative priorities the board sets. And in addition, we work on ADA compliance. So I work pretty closely with these 5 elected officials and all of the county department heads. And so collaboration and teamwork is a really big, important component in the work that we do here at the county.
Thank you, CAO Nilsson. And we have our county counsel, Jeff Blank.
Good morning. I'm the attorney for the Board of Supervisors, appointed by them by statute. I also have 11 other attorneys working with me to help provide legal information to all the departments that Amy just mentioned, and basically is to give the best legal advice possible and deal with claims and litigation as they arise to help keep us on the track and in compliance with all of our various state, federal, and local rules.
Thank you, Council Blank. And last but not least, our clerk of the board, Ryan Sharp. Ryan, tell us a little bit about what you do. There you go.
So, my name is Ryan Sharp. I clerk the meeting, so I'm reporting everything that's going and timestamping.
Yeah, I think it is.
There we go.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, my name is Ryan Sharp. I'm clerk of the board, and what I do up here is recording the meeting as it goes, timestamping as it goes on, support staff for the board. Some of the other things that we do is recording the actual votes and everything and keeping an accurate history of the board's decisions. and anything that they need if they're needing us to do research or support in any way.
Thank you, Ryan. And one other thing I'd like to say is there are a number of our department heads here today too, and they're here whenever there's an item on the agenda that has to be heard having to do with their department. So a lot of work happens here on Tuesdays. Sometimes you don't hear a lot about it, but it takes a lot of work to run the county. So thank you. Chair Bass had an idea about how we should go forward at this point.
And this, I'm not sure, I know we want to do the presentation and take the picture, and then the kids, you guys can all leave. There might be a few people in the audience who would like to make public comment, though, on you being here today. So I did want to give that opportunity, but not too many, because I know we have to break and get you out of here. So was there anyone in the audience who cared to make a comment on this item?
Somebody right in the back there.
Oops, well, come on up. And this is on the Toddy Thomas item.
Cause of the homelessness?
No, nope, that's later.
Excuse me.
No worries, it's okay. All right, so seeing no one want to, all right. Nobody else?
I'm a substitute teacher myself, although I have not had the honor of substituting in Fortuna, but I just want to thank you all for coming and getting involved with our local government, because you all are the future, and you too are very brave. And you all are, thank you for coming and supporting your friends, because you all are going to be up there someday. Maybe not you personally, but or your friend is, and you're going to vote. And we have a lot of Republicans in office, and that's fine. But the people that vote the most are light-skinned Republicans, males, and then we have light-skinned Republican males in office. And if they represent the people, that's great. And if they don't, it's our job to make sure we have women, we have other minorities, or Latinos are the majority in this country, and that everyone's voices and issues are being heard. So I just thank you so much for speaking.
All righty, so, and just do the silent wave. Come on, we taught these poor kids how to do this. Welcome, Mr. Ritter. Back to you.
So we'll get back to Mr. Ritter, and again, thank you everybody for being here, and keep on keeping interested in leadership and being involved.
Well, thank you again, and we really appreciate you putting us on the agenda and doing this comprehensive introduction of county government for the students. It's an outstanding introduction to them for civics. I wanted to do two things, acknowledge Miss G, Rachel Galliani, and this is her students. This is her 8th grade class. And then also mention Vince Zinselmeyer, the principal, and just Toddy's overwhelming commitment to focus on service, community service, and introducing the students to future opportunities. And I wanted to invite as many students who are willing to come up here and present the gifts to you guys. So come on up.
And considering they'll be leaving in a few minutes anyway, they might as well stand up, you know?
Come on, you guys.
And I will notice is generally we don't have people come past the podium, but for this we'll make an exception. And then before you leave, if you'd like to take a group picture, we'll do that.
Best. Thank you.
And we do have a piece of business. All right, so.
Many of you know Kara and Greg Knotzman at Lotus Mountain, and they hosted us for a career exploration field trip. Students suggested some different t-shirt designs. This is the one that won, and we made them that day under Greg and Kara's leadership, and so we wanted to present them to you guys. So thanks again.
All right, thank you. Sorry, I broke my own rule. Okay. So at this time, before we take a break, we do have to do one official piece of business. Do I have a motion to accept the presentation?
I move that we accept the presentation.
We'll second that motion.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. So at this point, we are going to take a break. 5 minute? Well, we're gonna let the kids leave. Yeah, 5 minute break. Supervisor Bone. That's one thing nice when you're chair. I can call how much of a break I want. So yeah, we'll take a picture and then we'll try to get back in about 5 minutes. Okay, as soon as everyone settles down, we will start with, we'll reconvene the public comment portion of our meeting. Again, just for a reminder for some folks who may not have been here, this is the time to speak on items that are not on the agenda. Because it's not on the agenda, there will be no action taken nor discussion, and there are 3-minute time limits. So at this point, welcome.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I want to recognize that we are on Wiyot land, and the way the Wiyot and the original people of this area were treated, were pushed off their land, were committed genocide on, were sexually abused and raped and forced displaced affects the way that we treat each other today. We still have not healed from that as a community, and I don't get the impression we're trying to heal from that as a community. There's scary things going on in Humboldt. There's sex trafficking. There's homeless youth. There's homeless people who are not having their rights upheld. And if you make a mistake and that's an accident, that's one thing. But people in power that know what is going on to our foster youth when they're in bad situations and they're not upholding laws and they're not standing up for the youth, that scares me. That really scares me because I have a daughter. I care for the children in this community. I'm a substitute teacher since I resigned from the county. And we have 1,500 foster youth at in Humboldt County Office of Ed, counted approximately 15, sorry, not foster youth, because what is this lady saying? Homeless children. That is really scary because foster youth and homeless youth are the highest percentage of sex trafficked kids. And so if our cops and our sheriff are out there harassing my friends because they made so many laws in Eureka for it to be illegal to sleep, which is contrary to our constitutional rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, illegal because squatters do have rights in this country. They are just not upheld. The Palico Marsh eviction was illegal. None of those people are housed. Some of them have very life-threatening health conditions, and they cannot get housed because everything is full. This is really scary. I've been homeless with my daughter twice in Humboldt County. I've been homeless and housing insecure since I graduated from college in 2004. When I worked for the county, I was homeless with my daughter. She was not school age, so she would not have been counted in that statistic. It's very stressful. I didn't qualify for any programs because I didn't qualify for welfare. Once I had a county job, but I could not make it on $12 an hour. My daughter has serious health conditions. That's why we were homeless. My sister's been chronically homeless. This is an emergency. I'm sorry, my voice gets loud because this is an emergency. And when I'm teaching, we're allowed to use that voice for emergencies. And I need you to hear us. I need you to hear us because Ms. Virginia Vass, you are my supervisor. You're up for re-election. As of yet, you do not have my support. I need to see us take this seriously. People are dying. They're getting killed. Addiction is a mental illness, and we're treating them like they're bad, and not all homeless people are addicted. Go in peace.
Actually, would you mind just stating your name for our record? I know.
My name is Margaret Madden. I go by Maggie. I live in Old Town, and my neighbors are being harassed there on a daily basis.
All right. Thank you, Margaret. Welcome.
What brought me here today, although I hate coming to these meetings, is I am asking you, and I'm asking anybody who's watching, that this is our moment. This is our moment. We've been going through this issue for the last 20, I'm not even going to count. This is our choice. We have a choice to choose hallelujah or hell. And the reason I say that is because it's factual in the sense that when you had your high-paid consultant come on January 26, 2016, so people can listen to it. She said, people die outside, and that happens all the time. Homeless people die outside, and they die for lots of reasons, but if they weren't outside, in many cases, they wouldn't have died. So she's saying that. You have your expert giving you that feedback. But what does it get down to? Why are we even here? And I think one of the issues, there's a lot of issues, but one is who's taking responsibility? And I don't belong to any group, so I'm not speaking for AHHA. But each group can say it's not our problem, it's the federal problem, and Betty Chin's taking care of it, so we don't have to take care of it. But if you look at the history, it's a fascinating history of our country. It's actually very inspiring. At different points, the federal government said it's not our problem, and the state said it wasn't their problem. But we are here today to ask you to at least have a discussion on how we can all claim it as our problem. We want to help. Everybody in this room wants to help. And Marianne asked me to ask everybody to stand up, but she'll do that for you. But the thing is, here's the thing. We have the ability, the compassion, the heart, the soul. And I wrote an article about it in the Journal back in 1991. And it's because they came to the county, to the supervisors. The supervisors did what they could do contractually, legally, to facilitate this interactive shelter between volunteers. And so what we're saying is AHHA gets a lot of bad reputation because they're so negative. They're not negative. They're the most positive people in the universe. They're saying Humboldt County has the capacity, the heart, the soul to take care of this problem, that there's no reason for people to be out there. Historically, people have said when there's the worthy poor and the unworthy poor, and it's okay what happens to the unworthy poor. And that's the public narrative, that if you want a place, you can find a place. You know that's not true. We all know it's not true, but we all want to believe it. Is that it? Well, yeah. What I would ask is for everybody to take responsibility. If you're watching, think about what you can do. Call AHHA, call the supervisor and said, we're ready to help. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. I think we can have another hallelujah, and that's what I'm asking for, and that's what I believe in, and I will work towards it till the day I die because I'm not rational. But I believe in Humboldt County.
Thank you very much. All right. Thank you. Welcome.
Good morning, almost afternoon. My name is Deborah Carey, and I'm from Southern Humboldt, and I appreciate this time. I was the person that wrote the original shelter crisis letter to you. I went to ACLU almost 4 years ago in December, and they wrote a letter to each and every one of you, some that weren't on the board, and to the Human Rights. And the Human Rights wrote 3 letters to you folks, and that's been almost 4 years ago. So today I would ask that you would please put the shelter crisis on the agenda so we can have a conversation and we can educate each other. One of the things I'm thankful for this season is that I do live in Humboldt County, and I'm thankful for your leadership and what you have done in this county, because I know you've worked hard. But I think as a good, healthy community, we need to start to communicate. And so today is the day that we ask you and invite you publicly again to communicate and put this on the agenda. But today also, I wanted to honor the people that have died on the streets, that have been waiting for us to talk about this. And I think that people don't understand. These are just the people I know, and I ask for forgiveness of those that I don't know. So I'll start with Wanda Kibbe, Michael Dragon, Michael Graves, David Smiley, Big John, Jeff, Martin Fred Cotton Jr., the second, Lee, Mr. Clean, Patrick O'Brien, Philip Gray, Gary, Oat Groat, Tin Bears, Schlitz, Red Riley, Heather Goforth, Robert Manning, Robert, James Utley, Walker Mike, Jungle, Robert Garth, August, Rock, Junior's brother, Gene Taylor, Dave McCall, Mike Roach, Jeremy, Turtle, Josh, Bob, Flip, Rich Westling, Eric Shawn, Beatnik, William, Jeffrey, Jimmy Jenkins, Bob Burden, Kenny, Jed, Tommy, Furon, Raymond and Royce, Bruce, Julie, Zodi, Tom, Frankie, and Sunshine. Canada, Jeremy Watson, James Marlowe, Ron Mose, Carrington, Gail, Rachel, Donahue, I love you. Kenneth L. Dean, I miss your smile. Wesley Smith, I love you. C.E. Shane, Christopher, Guitar Dan, Chris Ayers, Squirrel, Art Man. I'm almost done. Tom Rice, Jeremy, Alan Clegman.
Actually, I have to turn it off, but if you would give us, that doesn't matter. I have to be consistent with everyone, but if you give us that list, we can certainly copy them for everyone here. All right, thank you. All right. And if you want to give that to Ryan, he'll take care of it right now for you, too. All righty. Okay, welcome, Marianne. You definitely want to pull that microphone down.
There's not much more to say that you haven't already heard, and I know how hard it is to listen to all of this, but it is the reality. The only thing I can add is sitting on the Behavioral Health Board. It's become obvious to me how the resources to help people when they first become mentally ill are simply not there. And they slide from mental illness into the families burn out because there's not enough support to help the whole situation. And then they end up homeless and on the street, and it gets worse and worse and worse. So it's a lack of resources all along the developmental path that is the underpinning for what we're seeing today in Humboldt County. I'd just love to encourage this discussion, countywide discussion of what we can do, not just with homelessness, but with drug and alcohol abuse and dual diagnosis and all that terminology. I'm also aware of the fact that our children in schools have more problems today, that the number of kids with severe problems in the educational system is double what it was before, and teachers are beginning to be overwhelmed. So the whole system is sliding into despair, and despair is the root of it all. So what can we do together to start right at the beginning, supporting young families, young children, school-age children and their families and their teachers and their schools, so that instead of homelessness, we build hopefulness, which means jobs, CR, getting educated. But it needs a support system in place, which does not exist now. And so I'm just asking for your leadership in developing such a support system countywide, everyone talking with each other instead of, and then that gradually over a long period of time will diminish the homelessness problem. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Marianne. Actually, we're going to go back, thank you. We're just generally don't clap in between. Thank you. Welcome.
I'm Maggie Schaefer from Arcata. I've been a supporter.
Hold on, you can pull that up more, and we'll start your time over since I interrupted you.
I'm Maggie Schaefer from Arcata. I've been a supporter of AHHA from its inception. I want to begin by finishing the list of people who have died in desperate circumstances in the streets of Humboldt. Jeremy, Alan Keekman, Joshua Deo, Con Lam, Gary Moody, Michael Lyon, Luke Dansero, George Redner, Eric Christian Minot, Doug Mitchell, Sam Whitney, Travis Rothwell, person named Georgie, D. Fay Moon, Adonia McGarity, Herb Macias, Colleen Branch, Rebecca Stiles, Kid, Damien. I was just going to, I've heard so many true things said, and I only have two small points to make. One, Edie Jessup, you may have read a letter that she submitted to the media saying that she took two homeless people on an errand, and when she came back, their belongings had been confiscated by the police. It seems to me that we're putting the police in an untenable position where they know that they need to treat poor and rich in all circumstances, citizens in the same way, and yet they have to be
they're responsible for what is regarded as public order, things left, and, you know, bicycles, bedding and stuff in the street. A safe, warm, and dry would go a long way to solving that problem. The other thing I have to say is that I think having gone so long without addressing this issue, people on the board must have thought of particular reasons why this is difficult for you. And I think we need to shine a light on what the problems are. We need a chance to bring these issues into the open. So I urge you to open the debate by declaring a shelter crisis. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. Welcome. Welcome. Thank you. My eyes are bad now. There you go. Welcome.
My name is Lisa Pelletier. I'm a coordinator with the...
Sorry,
what do I do?
Get closer to the mic.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. There we go.
Okay, my name is Lisa Pelletier. I'm a coordinator with the Housing Access Group of the Equity Arcata. And I've been interviewing various service providers as a part of doing research to find out how we can provide more access to housing for people of color in our community, because in the wake of the murder of HSU student David Josiah Lawson, our community came together. And I have learned that there is a severe housing shortage, which you probably already know, not just in our county, but throughout the state of California and throughout the country, actually. So we can't very well blame people, and also people are working at very low wages. The average wage in Humboldt County is much less than in the Bay Area. I came up from the Bay Area. And so you can't really blame people for ending up on the street. This could happen to any of us. Any of us could have a medical condition. We could have some kind of tragedy. We could end up out there. We could have a natural disaster. So let's start thinking about what to do. And Housing First is not working. It's not working because I've been hearing that even service providers who have vouchers cannot get people into housing. There's just not enough housing. And I want to reiterate something to echo what Maggie said, that we are on WIAT land, and way back in the day when, well, actually historically it's a blink of an eye, but when the massacres of the Native Americans took place, the good white business people saw them as a problem, and they called for their extermination, and they got into parties, and they went after these people. Nowadays, we go after the homeless. We see them as a problem. So I just wanted to echo what Maggie had to say. I think she's absolutely right. And we have to start thinking with compassion and what is really going to work. And I think that, you know, what is going to work is let's get people into shelters. Let's get a tent village. Let's declare an emergency shelter crisis. And that will be the most compassionate thing and the most economical thing. And I just want to thank you for considering it and urge you to pass this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa. Welcome, Jeff. You might want to pull the microphone up.
Supervisors, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I speak today on behalf of the homeless situation in this area, number one. And I think that we all can see that there is an issue going on here that we need to work on, and it's been a long time. I appreciate what you guys do in the community, every single one of you, but this is not going to go away. I think there's nobody behind me, maybe there will be, disputing that we need to get this on the ballot. And we talk about, or get it on the agenda for you to speak on. And I heard earlier, speaking to the students, you guys are a team. And I think unanimously, you all should support getting in on there and having a discussion. You know, I'm a taxpayer. I live here. I see the problem. I know you guys do too. It's not going to go away. We have to do something. So I would urge you to get it on the agenda as soon as possible. And thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Welcome. Thanks for sticking around.
You're welcome. Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mike Smith. I'm a U.S. Army Iraq veteran. I've served 3 years in Iraq, and I've been through a lot. I'm originally from Sacramento. Lived in Crescent City since 2011. I became homeless in May and was forced to move down here to Eureka at the Veterans Resource Center, transitional housing. If it wasn't for that place, I would probably be out in the bush with everybody else, drinking, doing heroin, whatever. I do believe that there is a lot of red tape, a lot of corruption, and I've experienced it myself, seen it with my own 2 eyes. I think there's, we can make this homeless problem, we can solve this homeless problem, but it takes cooperation. And it takes you guys and all of us as a group to make it happen. I don't know if it's the financial problem, you know, if money's the problem or what, but a lot of us are frustrated with, you know, it seems like we have no rights. Our rights are being taken away left and right. I know I exercised my right when I had my apartment in Crescent City to not pay rent because of a mold issue. No, I still lost everything. I had pictures. So how do I explain that to my little girl when I lost, you know, told her I lost all your newborn clothes and everything else, you know, lost all my military awards. That's great. That's awesome. But I'm just here just trying to get a voice out. It's very bad. And the heroin dealers, they know there's a problem here, a lot of homeless, and they're going to keep feeding that in. They know weed's going to be coming to recreational next year. They're going to keep pushing it in because they know they're going to be losing out on money. But all I ask, and everyone else asks, is just, you know, we need to come together. We can make this happen. There's vacant buildings around here that we can house people. A lot of the people have mental health issues. You know, we got to reach out. That's what we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you for your service. Welcome.
Good morning. My name's Jan Rowan, and I really just have one simple thing to say is that every night when I crawl into my warm bed, I can't go to sleep without thinking of the people that are in the cold, especially as the winter comes on. And I know they're freezing, and I just don't even understand how they can sleep, which is a basic requirement for life. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jan. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Winchell Dillenbeck. I am an AHHA board member. I have some prepared written comments if you would like copies of them.
And you might want to pull the microphone up a little higher.
Yes. I'm working with my reading glasses, always a chore. Homelessness continues to be a serious problem in Humboldt County. Rural homelessness is diverse. People from all walks of life, including families with children, employed and unemployed workers, elderly residents, veterans, disabled individuals, youth, and individuals are impacted by homelessness. Every community reports homelessness to be a challenge. Bigger communities often note the lack of affordable housing and essential supports, mental health, addictions, domestic violence to be a major challenge in addressing homelessness. In rural centers, this issue is even more acute. There simply is not enough funding and service capacity to offer diverse supports needed. Lance Morton, a member of the Human Rights Commission, recently stated that there is no political will to solve the homeless problem. Lynette Mullen, the Homeless Services Program Manager, recently concluded in her report to the Human Rights Commission that there was no comprehensive housing strategy. There is a shortage of affordable housing in Humboldt County. Affordable housing units have multiple problems. New housing developments are slow to be built with complex zoning laws. The shortage of affordable housing leaves many residents on long waiting lists for subsidized housing. The partnerships are often, the partnerships are often with private real estate developers in the private sector, which makes low-wage earners unable to afford the new housing developments. Transitioning from temporary to permanent housing is difficult due to shortage. People are upset about the encampments and people on the street, whether it is because they feel sorry for them or because they do not like them. Tiny house villages and sanctuary camps are a necessary intermediate step until enough affordable housing can be built. I urge the Board of Supervisors to place a shelter crisis declaration on the agenda. Doing so will allow public input and discussion.
Thank you, Winchell. All right, thank you very much, and thank you for bringing it in writing also. Whoops, hold on just a moment. Sorry. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Chip Sharp, a resident of Bayside, and I often hear fear expressed. If we provide a camp, what kind of messes will there be that we have to clean up? If we provide a tiny house village site, what problems will we encounter there? And if we take this measure, is that going to prove to be the very best thing we could have done? If we take this other measure, maybe that's not the best. It's become obvious to me that there are many steps that have to be taken. We have to provide on-street parking for some. We have to provide campsites. We have to provide tiny house villages. We have to look for housing as a long-term solution. Housing First has some great ideas, but it's not going to solve all of it. So what I'm asking is that we show some faith. We've seen in the community that there are many people willing to step forward. We had folks feeding people at the Palco Marsh. We had people intervening where they saw needs. We have church groups. We have, I'm a scout leader. I know that scout troops are always looking for service projects. They have interest in this. There are other youth groups. So please enlist community groups to help with the planning, to step up and help with problems that arise, but enlist them before the problems arise and move with some faith that we have a community here that is going to support some real solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chip. Welcome, John.
Thank you, supervisors, for all you do. I'm going to ask you to do one more thing. And in support of that, may I ask members of the audience who support the addressing of the homeless issue, could you please stand so that supervisors will
And John,
see?
can I have you looking at us though when you're talking, but they certainly can stand, that's fine. Thanks. That way you're seen on public.
Okay, the crowd has thinned out some, but I think you can see that there's a lot of interest in doing something about this. And honestly, I can't understand any reason why this should not be an item on the agenda. So I would ask you four members of the Board of Supervisors to unanimously approve addressing this issue as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Welcome.
Duke Maynard, Southern Humboldt. Seems to me the Humboldt is going through a homeless anonymous class. Before you can fix a problem, you have to recognize it. So we need this chamber and supervisors to declare a homeless crisis so that we can begin to discuss for what it is. And it all starts with recognizing a problem. I hope that and urge the board to unanimously decide on it.
Thank you, Duke. And is there anyone else who cares to comment on an item not on the agenda? All right. Thank you very much. Seeing none, we will move on to our next item. Just for people who may be wanting to know, there is no discussion or action that can be taken on items brought up under non-agenda item public comment. So we'll move on to our next item, which, by law, yes, thank you. So